Welcome to the fifth episode of Not Another AI podcast by Women Defining AI. Here we're creating a space for women and non-binary individuals to learn, grow, and shape AI's future. My name is Julia Kapoor, and in my day job, I'm a sales advisor to technology companies. Together with my co-hosts Sheila Luning and Sheena Miles, we are bringing you the real stories of AI experts and everyday people by exploring their ideas, challenges, and breakthroughs. Today we're doing something interesting. We are interviewing podcast co-host Sheena Miles. In her day job, she is the manager of AI strategy and innovation at NMI, a payments company. And she also holds a master's in big data, AI, and machine learning. Sheena is, I will share, the person who I am most likely to reach out to if I have the question, hey, how could AI help solve this problem? So let's get to it.
Sheena, can you introduce yourself for listeners?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this. I'm really excited that you're the one doing this. So I am Sheena, for everyone who hasn't listened to an episode or listened to the episode that I've hosted with Sandia. Like Julia said, I work for a company called NMI. We're a payments gateway / fintech. Internally, I am the manager of AI strategy and operations. And as we all know, because AI is such a new industry, that means a lot of different things. Mostly what I tell people when I kind of explain what I do is we look at processes, people, and product, and how can we use AI to make all of those, to improve all of those. I don't want to say make them all better, but just improve all of those. So yeah, that's what I do. My background though, because as we all know, AI just got really big. So my background is in marketing. So I spent over a decade in marketing. So really strong on the go-to-market side. And that's really, I think, where I bring my expertise on our team. We're a two-person team. It's me and my director. He's a software engineer, so he's the technical one. I'm the go-to-market one. So makes for a really good team. In really interesting discussions. So yeah, I've been doing this for a year and a half, but it's funny because when I was doing marketing, I would always just describe myself as a marketer, but now I feel like AI has given me access to so many things, not just AI, but like women defining AI as well. So now I'm a podcast host, now I'm a podcast guest. I've done speaking. I've talked to other companies, just, in conversations they've had about AI. I have done trainings. I have done webinars. So kind of all over the place now.
Yeah. No, I think you have a very interesting role, a role that we've seen pop up a lot over the last year and a half. Manager of AI, director of AI, head of AI strategy. These roles are coming up more and more, and the people stepping into them have a background and a specialization, but it's typically not in this field because it's so new. And so it's very cool to be in a role where you are building it from the ground up and you're building the ship as you're sailing it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like building a plane, flying it, and building the airport at the same time. So that's interesting. Yeah. And I find that a lot of people in these roles are very technical too. So, like I said, my boss is a software engineer, and it is needed. It is necessary. There's so much on the technical side that if you have no experience in it, it would be hard to pick up quickly. But I've been lucky to be able to move into this role and not have that super technical background. So I do have the master's, did go through that. We did a lot of coding, machine learning, that sort of thing. But I mean, hands-on experience, you can't replace that. So really lucky to have been able to make that transition.
Yeah. And what does your day-to-day role look like?
It's different every day. It's definitely different every day. And it depends on what I find, what problem I'm trying to solve. And so you kind of talked about that earlier, trusting me to solve problems, which is really funny. But I feel like that is what I do all day. So it is, how can we use AI to solve a problem? So it may be, we want to make a process better. I'm trying to think like what I've done this week that I can explain. I will say this: I read a lot. Every day I start my day with reading like what's new because things change so quickly. And so one of the things this week that I am working on, I had to put in a security ticket, is Claude this month or beginning of May released some new integrations. And these integrations connect with a lot of MCP servers. So we internally will use Confluence, we use Intercom as well. And both of these now have an integration with Claude. So right now, what I'm looking at is how can I help our support team improve our knowledge base by pulling insights using Claude through the Intercom MCP. Also working on building a library of resources just for AI for the entire company. And because we're mostly Confluence, where we keep a lot of our documentation. So what I want to do is connect Claude in the Confluence MCP server and be able to build that using natural language. Like, hey, I just want to build this page, create it, put these resources in it, etc. So those are the problems I'm trying to solve.
That's really cool. For those who don't know what an MCP is, a model context protocol, can you explain that briefly in regular people terms?
I watch a video once a week to explain it to myself. I still haven't completely grasped it, but essentially it's an LLM is trained. We know an LLM has a ton of knowledge, but it does not have knowledge on resources and tools that you may have internally. So it needs a way to be able to talk to those tools that you have. So Intercom, Confluence, that sort of thing. So what the server does is allow those things to be connected without you having to build out an entire system to connect the LLM and that tool. That's the most basic way I can explain it. Anybody like a CTO is going to listen to this and be like, oh my gosh, she butchered it. That's my best understanding, and that is what I'm using it for.
Yes, that's how I understood it too. So it
Okay.
resonated with me. Yeah,
Perfect.
I think that's the right way to explain it. What drew you to AI strategy? You worked in marketing for over 10 years. Give me a sense of what drew you to this role.
I have to back up. I can't say what drew me to the role specifically before I explain how I got here. So in marketing, my entire career, actually majored in marketing in college. You know, that's rare. You major in something and then you actually work in it. Back in 2014, 2015, I was working for T-Mobile, Metro PCS. We had been acquired by T-Mobile. And that's important because your companies were really, really on the cusp of how can we harness data. So for the longest time, marketing was about what's your gut feeling. Let's be creative. What's your gut feeling? And then it started becoming, we need to see ROI. You need to prove that what you're doing is working. And then what is our data telling us about our customer? I needed to do something different, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. Always knew I wanted to go to grad school. Decided, okay, I'm just going to leave the country and do my master's. And so I initially thought about doing an MBA, but and I had already applied, but then I saw they had a big data and business analytics program. And that kind of ties back to the everybody's talking about data in the company. I can see where this is going. So I thought, okay, well, I've worked a long time. I've worked a decent number of years, so I understand business. Yes, I would have learned something in an MBA program, but I knew I would learn more if I did something different. So I decided to apply, got in, moved to Spain, did this master's, and I started in 2018, graduated in 2019, but decided to stay for a little bit. And 2020, we all know what happened. So got stuck there for a little bit, came back and had to find a job. Just find a job. And I obviously wasn't prepared for like the economy to be what it was. So I ended up finding a job in a startup tech company, but it was in customer success. So I did a year in customer success, probably the longest year of my life, but I learned so much. So did that year, ended up moving to a different company into demand gen. We went through layoffs 6 months later and then ended up here in demand gen, here being NMI. So did that for about a year. And then a year and a half ago now, they announced that internally, like, hey, we're starting an AI function. And that's when the director was announced. And so I reached out to him and I said, hey, and I had never spoken to him before because he was on the engineering side and, you know, we're remote. So there's such a gap there. It's like, hey, I'm interested. I have this background. This is what I do. Can we chat? And he was like, sure. So we chatted, I applied, and here we are today.
What was it like to start an AI team from scratch?
Some days I feel like we're still on day one, but I'm sure if I looked back, I would see how far we've come. But it's fun. It's so fun because, it's like working at a startup, but a startup with resources because we're a bigger company. So you're like in
Yeah.
your little incubator, and sometimes you get away with not following the normal process. Sometimes you don't. We just found that out recently on one of the projects we were working on. But it's fun. It's challenging. It's a lot of guessing. It's a lot of going back to that whole gut instinct thing. It's a lot of gut instinct, like just go with it. And in something that like AI that moves so quickly, you just have to make a decision and go with it and understand that decisions aren't forever. You can change it if you need to, but if you're gonna if you continue to just to research and try to find the best thing, you'll be researching forever because there's always going to be a new best thing. There's always a
Yeah.
better model. There's always another way to do things. So it is, that's a challenge for me. I am a classic overthinker. I want to know that I have read all the data I can. So it has been fun, but it has been a challenge for me personally. And it's just been an adventure in learning, really. And that's why I like it, because I had gotten to a point in my career where I wasn't really challenged anymore. It wasn't marketing, like there's nothing wrong with marketing, but it wasn't changing that quickly.
Yeah.
This is every day.
Yeah, you mentioned that you read every morning. That's the first thing that you do. What are you reading to stay up to date on these constant changes?
For a long time, I was reading a newsletter called TLDR. I still read that sometimes, but it's very technical. So, if you're trying to get into the technical piece of it, it's a great one. My new favorite one is The Neuron, and it's a newsletter. It takes me, if you just read it through, it takes you like 4 or 5 minutes to read it through. But obviously, if you start digging into the links that they share, it's going to take a little longer. But that is my favorite thing. And that is where, like this week, I found the whole intercom, MCP server, Claude integrations. So we mostly spend our time in ChatGPT. I do have a Claude membership, but not in there every day like I am in ChatGPT. So the Neuron, I would recommend to everyone. And then on LinkedIn, seeing what people are talking about. What are they doing? What problems are they solving? So, and in WDAI Slack channels, looking at what people are doing.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I recently launched my own business and I built my website on a platform called Durable AI. And it's because you had seen it in one of your newsletters. And I had asked folks, like, hey, are there any new, more innovative AI tools to build websites or create your business in an easy way? And so I think that those are really effective. It helped me directly.
Well, I haven't even used it. So like what was it, what was your experience? Like was it easy? Was it hard? What did you find?
I can't tell you how easy it was. Actually, recently, I liked it so much when I first started using it. They've got this like business in a box concept. So not only building your website, but having your CRM where you can get invoices, how you can get your brand toolkit, all of these little things that make starting your own business very nice and quick and easy. And I recently had the opportunity to talk to the CEO because I had just messaged him on LinkedIn like, hey, this is amazing. I really like it. And they are constantly iterating on all of these products and making them better. And it just, I can't tell you how easy it is to plug and play and to build. And it was such like, I thought that I was going to have the headache of like, oh, I need to go to Fiverr and like hire some people to do these things. And I didn't have to do that once. I was able to do it all by myself or use their customer service. And I'll get off my soapbox, but like one thing I liked about their customer service that I would say I think is really interesting about AI tooling right now is that it's definitely AI first, but as soon as you need to talk to a human, you have the ability to. So the agent works really well in terms of supporting you with answers. But as soon as you start to smash your hands on the keyboard and get frustrated, it automatically sends you to a person in business hours and you get a response really quickly, which I would say was the nicest thing.
That is nice because I find myself on the phone saying, speak to someone, speak to someone. So it's nice.
Representative.
Yeah.
Human. Talk to a human.
I know. And as somebody in AI, like I feel horribly when I don't want to use the system, but especially when it's the pharmacy, it's like I'm only calling because you told me there was a problem. So no, that's good to hear because I need to work on that. So anybody who wants to see durable in action, what's your website?
Well, thank you for asking. It's briolabs.co or just simply juliakapoor.com.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, check it out if you want to see how well durable works.
Thank you. Thank you for the plug. I appreciate it. Well, okay. So, one thing I really want to talk about is when you and I have chatted in the past, you've spoken to me a lot about some of these very cool systems and processes that you all have optimized using AI. Can you give us an example of some of the things you've done for the go-to-market team, for the engineering team to really help speed up the way that you all work?
Yeah. So for go to market, the biggest one, and it's funny because our PE firm noticed that I'd post on LinkedIn about it. So one day I get like 5 LinkedIn requests from people at our PE firm, and I freaked out because I'm like, what's going on? Why are all these people? Why do they want to talk to me? But it is because I had posted about an agent we made call our voice of the customer agent. And essentially, what it is really trying to pull out insights from what our customers are physically telling us. And that is because we use Gong as a recording tool. Honestly, you could probably do this with most of 99% of the recording tools out there. We use Gong and we use N8N. N8N. It's very hard to pick that up, but we use both of those. And so N8N is an agentic workflow builder. And what we did was we pulled in all of the transcripts, not all of them. We pulled in specific transcripts from Gong based on customers we wanted to hear from. And so we pulled in those transcripts and you kind of have to do it's a little coding, it's a little technical. I was a little skeptical at first, but you sometimes I go ChatGPT. Okay, now what do I do next? So anybody can really do this.
Are you vibe coding that? So, like, you vibe coded it?
Essentially, yeah. Well, so
Yeah.
I will admit I did not set up the first one. My boss did. As an
Okay,
engineer,
he's an engineer.
he's an engineer. He just went and he's like, all right, I'm gonna do this in a couple of hours. So I'm pulling in the Gong call transcripts and then parsing that. So you give it a system prompt, and the prompt is tell us anything you find important and give us a context. So, kind of the top 3 quotes, pull in the quotes specifically. We made sure to say, don't pull in the employee's name. Not that you can't go find it because the Gong call is linked, but it's not the goal to make anybody look bad. It's really the to just take these insights and see what we can do with it and then give us the content. And then it just pushes to Slack. And so in a Slack channel, every, I want to say 4 days, there's a message with some quotes, context, the link to the Gong call. And then another piece that we set up was you can actually interact with that agent within Slack. So if you see a quote and there's something you want to know more about, it's, hey, can you give us a little more context what this is about? So you don't have to go into the call. That's always an option if you want to go listen to the clip, but it has unearthed some things that I think would have been hidden not intentionally, but because people are moving 10 miles a minute, it's, oh, is this important enough to bring out? And so we're kind of letting the agent decide if it is important enough to share. So when we kind of talk about giving agents decision-making powers, this is one of those areas where you can, and it's not dangerous. Like you're not making a decision that's going to change the course of the business immediately. It's saying, hey, we think this is important. Here, you do with it what you will.
How does it know what's important? Have you taught it that?
So in the prompt, it does say, we're looking for quotes like XYZ, not XYZ. So it's sort of like when you're building a custom GPT, how you have to be explicit to give it ideas. Again, just like you would, how I always tell people, just like you would teach an intern. Like they don't know what's
Yeah.
important to the company until you tell them. And so it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. So many points I want to dig into from here. But first, I want to talk about the tools and the platforms that you use. You mentioned, and I know you use Gumloop, ChatGPT, Claude, other ones. What are your tools of choice and why? I'm curious to know that your thoughts on these.
Yeah, innate in was because of the customizations you can make. So you can connect with any API. So they have some built in, some nodes that they call it. So you can just pull in a Slack node and there are some commands that you can easily set up. But if there's something it can't do, then you can always connect it to the API and have it do that. So I did actually push back a little on it because I'm not a technical person. And my boss is like, oh, it's so easy. I'm like, oh, you're a software engineer. Of course it is. But I've come to like it because it can do a lot. It does have a lot of capabilities. But I will say one of our goals is to get people on some of the go-to-market teams to be able to take on these projects because there's two of us. We can only do so much. And so I don't know that N8N is going to be the right tool for that. And then N8N and Gumloop are really different use cases. Like N8N is more of an automation sort of thing. Loop is really more like a decision tree. Like, let's take the phone calls, for example. You would pull in those quotes and then you'd say, okay, if they're talking about costs, go this way. If they're talking about integrations, go this way. And then suggest content for the content team based on that. Like, give me 3 headlines. So you can actually also build that in a, but there's like a marketing team probably wouldn't need as much like the things that N8N provides. They'd probably be good with what Gumloop provides. So it's really understanding like the needs of your team. So we use that, like I said, we use Claude, ChatGPT, Google Notebook LM. So you can check out NMI's the YouTube channel, and our team writes our white papers, and they've started using Notebook LM to generate podcasts from that. So I was really excited. I shared that was an option for them, but I'm really excited because it just makes it more accessible for certain people. I mean, not everybody's going to sit and read a white paper. So we use that. And then engineering wise, really big on Cursor. So that's one of the things we've recently, Cursor and Claude Code, both of those.
I would love to dig into that. The reason I ask is because I come from the enterprise tech space, and one of the biggest questions that I often have when thinking about Cursor or Claude Code or any of these other tools is how sticky are they? How are those integrated into your process? And how easy would it be for you to switch to another solution when something better or more innovative is available?
I'd say it's pretty easy. It just depends on what you wanted to do. So before we were using Copilot, the GitHub Copilot, and I think our CTO had gone to a conference with one of our PE firms, and people were talking about Cursor. I had mentioned it from Women Defining AI, and then I think our director of platform architecture went to our CTO's house for 2 days and just built something, and he was sold. And so, like, when I talk about it, I'm like, yeah, it's good. Like, you should try it, but I can't. I mean, what I do in my spare time, it's not as impressive as like, hey, it can change the way we work as an engineering department. So a lot of people have moved essentially from Copilot to Cursor. And it took about a month to make that transition. Not everybody at one time, like a few teams at a time. And then we had somebody come in and say, for what I do, Copilot actually is best. My director it's like, hey, can you just give me some more context? And he explained it. And so I think he's going to keep Copilot. And so it is easy to make that change. I mean, I think it understands. I was talking to one of our team members the other day, and she's like, well, it understands the code that we already have better versus I'd have to tell ChatGPT this is the code and then go back, like kind of go back and forth. But from what I understand, it's pretty easy to switch out. However, do you want to do that all the time? Probably not. And I think Cursor has proven to really stay up to date on and kind of be in the forefront of what they're doing.
That's good to know. I know a lot of folks are looking, this is a little off topic, but still on topic, that a lot of folks are looking at Cursor right now. They just hit 400 million in ARR. They only have like 60 employees and they're growing a ton. So are they going to be able to keep up this competitive moat that they have? How sticky are they going to be? It's interesting to hear the insider perspective from folks like you.
The stickiness is interesting because I was watching Was it yesterday that ChatGPT released their recording tool? My thought was, well, we've all bought recording software to, like I said, we use Gong. We also use a separate one for our non-sales people. And so how fast do you have to make these changes? But because ChatGPT, that's not what we bought it for. I think they're fine. So it's kind of like, how many extra features do you have to have to stay competitive? But also, as long as you can, keep that competitive edge in your core product, I think that's really what matters.
Yeah, definitely. I actually think a lot about so I worked at Slack for almost 8 years, and when Slack was first growing in the enterprise, a lot of folks would ask us, well, why don't you buy Zoom, or why don't you build a video conferencing tool into Slack? And the CEO and founder of Slack, Stuart Butterfield, would always say, because video conferencing tools are like automatic faucets. They never quite work the way that you want them to work. And it's very easy to get very frustrated with them. And the goal of Slack and mission of it was to make people's working lives simpler, more pleasant, and more productive. And could we really deliver on that mission if we were to build a video conferencing tool into the solution that, in many cases, it's not going to be our core product. So it's going to probably operate a lot like that automatic faucet where you're like waving your hand, it's not working, it's frustrating, a lot of friction, and not simple, pleasant, and productive. So it's interesting to hear you say this, that maybe some of the AI companies are taking more of that platform approach, but people are really still looking to them for the core of what their solution does.
Yeah, I just need this one thing to work well. The
Yeah.
rest of it, hey, it's great. And if you're going to give it, especially if you're going to give it to me for free, like I'll consider it. But I'm not going to buy tech based on all of these other fringe features and things that it can do if it doesn't do one thing well.
Yeah, it has to do one thing really well, and then the other stuff, is it okay if it's just okay? Like, would you replace Gong or like Chorus AI with ChatGPT's recording tool?
Probably not replace it, but for a different team, it could be enough. And so it's like, okay, well, now you're not talking about Gong versus ChatGPT, you're talking about ChatGPT versus Claude.
Yeah.
So you're not, because it's a fringe feature. So we're still looking at what can ChatGPT do well. And oh, well, it also has this recording feature. Are we between ChatGPT and Claude? So like that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like a lot of these AI companies like OpenAI and Anthropic and others could in the future become very much like the Google and the Salesforce, that are full platforms that have their core functionality and then have purchased lots of solutions or have built so many different of those fringe things that they offer that makes them extremely sticky in the enterprise.
Yeah, and so it's interesting you bring that up because like Agent Force, for instance, like
Yes.
not their core product, and I'm not sold on it. But the one thing that Salesforce has is they get you into their ecosystem, and you're like
Mm-hmm.
locked in. And I'm not going to go buy Salesforce because they have Agent Force. Like that is not going to be the deciding factor for me. And I haven't looked at it lately, but I don't know how well they do it. Like, did they just put it out because they need to compete? They need to keep people there. So is it we just have to come up with a solution?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I left Salesforce about 1 month ago after Slack was acquired by Salesforce. I was there for several years, and I, have some thoughts on this. But I think that they know they have that competitive moat is the high level, and their customers are demanding agentic solutions. You have Brett Taylor, who was the co-CEO with Mark Benioff, who went off and started Sierra, the customer service agent solution that I think a lot of very innovative companies are using right now, and it's proving to be very successful. And so it was very clear that in order to remain competitive, we had to, at Salesforce, build something similar and come out with our own product. My personal experience is that, like, for a lot of the more traditional customers or conservative customers, Salesforce is and was and is a safer bet than taking a bet on one of these new AI products. That
That's fair.
said, I don't know if it really is the most innovative or the most effective solution that is out there.
That's fair. And like from our standpoint, for instance, at NMI, because we're a payments company,
Yeah.
our security is probably a different level than just normal companies. And so we can't always go with the newest tool, even though and then sometimes I get frustrated with it because I'm like, it's cheaper, like we could do a lot with this, like it'll give us extra budget, but we do have to take that security into consideration. So maybe we get an agent force versus, something brand new that may be able to do a little more. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's nice that they offer the solution. It's nice that they have something.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I should have you on for my own like go to market podcast. I feel like everyone who I work with, because in my day job, I am a coach for salespeople, helping them run enterprise sales better. I think you and your boss are the buyer. I think they would be very interested to hear more from you. But yeah, cool. Let's zoom out and talk about the big picture in AI. Just like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, folks are starting to build AI more. We're taking generative AI, not AI, because machine learning and AI have been around for a long time, but generative AI more seriously into process and workflow. And teams like yours are sprouting up at companies all over the world. I am curious, what do you think that the future of AI teams looks like in the modern enterprise or the modern company?
That's an interesting question. 'Cause I had this conversation with my VP. She was like, "What do you think you'll do after this?" Because she
Yeah.
started in Agile. I don't know if that's where she started, but that's what brought her into the company. And she's like, "I'm sort of wondering once everybody has transformed into Agile, like how
Yeah.
to transform into Agile, if it's going to be the same with AI. Like once companies are transformed, it's going to be done." But I think the difference is, and what we kind of talked about earlier, is how quickly it's changing. I don't think that's gonna stop anytime soon. I mean, I do think you will hit a level of like you've just hit kind of this level of like we can't do much more. But I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon. And so I see us being around for a while. It's interesting though, because I see jobs popping up here and there, and everybody is looking for something different. And there's this one founder, I don't know his name, sure the company is amazing, but he's been posting a lot on LinkedIn about how he wants to hire someone who lives and breathes it, and they can embed themselves into different functions and figure out the processes, transform them, and they are always up to date. And those are the types of people that worry me. Those are the types of people I don't want to go work for because I don't think they understand that ask. I don't think they understand how big of an ask it is to always know what's happening. I met Allie Miller. I think you know who she is, but for those who don't, she's like a huge voice in AI when it comes to business. She does a lot of speaking, she trains, she, puts out guides, XYZ. And I told her, I was like, I feel overwhelmed. I feel like I can't keep up. And I said, "You're always posting about new things." And she's like, I'm gonna stop you right there. She said, "I get paid. That is literally my job to know everything new. And I get paid a lot to do that." And so I don't think people realize that the average person who's gonna make a pretty normal salary isn't going to be able to do that. And so I do think we took the right approach in having like two different mindsets, being like the engineering mindset, it's the go-to-market mindset coming together. And I do hope I see that more because it can't just be on one person to know everything and to be able to do all of the things that AI can do.
Yeah. I mean, I think that begs the question, like, what does the future of work look like with AI? Does every person have to have a certain level of AI competency? What does that look like? How does that manifest in the modern workplace? And how will that change between those companies who are doing it versus those companies who are slower to adopt?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a big gap between the companies that are doing it and the companies that are slower to adopt. And if I had if I had any advice for anyone looking for a position, definitely look for companies who are allowing you to test and grow and use AI. And I get that enterprises are a little more like we want to build our own internal chatbot. We want to build our own internal products that we can use. But I'm a little weary of that because when you go out into the real world, you don't know how to use these other tools that most companies are using. But I do think that I think the future of work is very different than the path that it was on before AI started, which seems like an obvious statement. But I say that because I don't think that there are going to be so many people looking to go work for companies. This has given so much access to be able to do your own thing and to support whatever that passion is. So it's not just, I want to build an app that anymore. It's you can literally do whatever you want with it. So if you know your passion is books, you can do something with that. Like there's just so much more you can do with it. So I do think companies are going to start seeing, and especially with them talking about like how AI is going to take entry level jobs. Like if I were coming out of college, why would I go and fight that fight at this point? I'd just start trying to do my own thing starting now. If I had the ability, I get everybody, you need a paycheck sometime. Like you can't just move home, that sort of thing. So I definitely think it's going to change the number of people who are looking to just go work for a company. So I think it's going to change it a lot.
Yeah. Do you have any ideas for what you would do if you just up and left and were building your own thing in an AI first world?
No, because every week I'm doing something different. So I use books because I love reading. It's probably my favorite thing, one of my favorite things to do. Part of a book club, and it's at a bookstore that is in a marginalized neighborhood. And so she has all the banned books. I love it. She hosts probably 11 book clubs. And I say the bookstore does. People from the community come in and host. But another thing they like to do is have conversations with authors. One of the things I learned is that authors of color typically don't get the funding to go on tour the way other authors do. And so I want to build a platform to change that. And I won't go into details, but that's something that I want to do. And if you had asked me a year ago, like, can you build a platform for this? Well, absolutely not, because I can't build a
Yeah.
platform. But now let's hop on Lovable, on VO, and type in what I want, and we can work something up.
Yeah. Can you give folks like just a quick taste of what that means? I know we've done a lot of vibe coding in WDAI and I'm part of a hackathon coming up. Can you explain what those are and like what the steps you would take to build an MVP, a minimum viable product?
It's all natural language. I think that's the biggest thing that AI has been able to give us. It's the ability to do it in natural language. So you don't have to know how to code. So it's you open up Lovable or VO and say, in my case, I want to build a platform that connects bookstores who want to bring who want to bring authors into their city, whatever it is. And it just starts working. And then you look at it and you say, okay, well, I want to make sure, there's a space that the author's pictures are there because visually that just makes it better. I want to change these colors. And you're literally typing it like you would tell someone that's building it for you, you're typing it that way, and then you have to deploy it. And this is where it gets a little more complicated. It's deploying it so that it actually lives somewhere. And then you have to and so you have your MVP, and ChatGPT or Claude, any of those can walk you through actually deploying it somewhere. You get it out there. And I think the important thing to understand though is that and this is what's not taking software engineers' jobs, is that there are security things you have to put in. And then there are all these guardrails you need to put in so that no one can hack and steal the information. But just to get, like you said, a minimum viable product out, it's literally just going in and typing in what you want and watching it.
Cool. Well, I hope you build that. It sounds like a really great and awesome platform.
I really want to do it. I will admit, I was actually talking to Helen about this, Helen being the co-founder of WDAI. I'd mentioned needing to use Gumloop more. She's like, oh, Sheena, we have credits. Make sure you go in and use it. And I'm like, when I'm done with work, I literally just want to go read a psychological thriller that is not true. I read the most random things. Like I'm not looking to learn anything or tie anything to work anymore.
Okay, cool. So I'm not going to ask you Ezra Klein's famous last question, which is 3 books that you would recommend, and people always like tie it into what they do. So you can answer it, but with just 3 random books that you like, whether you want to recommend, for whatever reason you're recommending.
So my favorite book so I read a book this year, and it's probably one of my top 5 books ever. Best book I've read in the last 10 years, called All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about this lady or this guy who gets kidnapped, and he's held in this house. His friend, and it's gonna be a little bit of a spoiler, but it happens early on. She finds him, but he says there's this girl that was there with him, and we don't know if the girl's real, if it was in his head, and like it's this quest to find her. But like there's this huge cast of characters. So much is happening. It's a slow burn. And so my sister read it after me, and she's like, I'm not enjoying this. And like, where are you? She's like, I'm probably 75% of the way there, just like looking at Libby. I was like, keep going. The next day, she's like, oh my God, it was amazing. So it's one of those that at the end,
Yeah.
everything just comes together, and it's just
Yes.
so beautifully written. Like,
Yeah.
I wish that I hadn't read it so I could read it again. Like,
Yeah.
it's like I want to do it again.
Yeah. There was a book that I read this year that was like that, where I was actually like a little confused until I got to the end. And then I was like, oh shit.
What book?
Nickel Boys. I read Nickel Boys, which I think was turned into a movie, but I never saw the movie. The whole time I'm like, I'm confused. I don't get it. I'm like, I get it, but I don't get it. And then at the end I was like, oh shit, like
You
I
got
get it. I got it. I got it. Okay, cool. I think I would be remiss if we didn't talk about AGI. I literally had a conversation yesterday with a friend slash mentor of mine who is, has a lot of offers for lots of different new roles. And I asked her, I was like, what are you looking to optimize for? And she made an offhanded comment like, like work-life balance, learning, etc. Of course, compensation is something big. And on the compensation front, she goes, well, will money even matter in 5 years when AGI takes over the world and modern currency as we know it isn't relevant in the way we see it today? So curious, as someone who works in AI every day, in and out, like day in and day out, how are you thinking about that? What's your perspective? Timeline implications, etc.
I don't think about AGI. It's so funny. I feel like people who are in it day to day don't really think about it because there's so much going on every day that I
Yeah.
think one day we're going to wake up and it's just going to be that. So, I mean, I know even my dad, and we talked about it at book club the other day too, the story, the Anthropic engineer that was blackmailed about his affair, which I still don't know if the affair was real or
I don't know this story. What's the story?
so I think he was trying to tell the model to shut down, and the model wouldn't shut down. And he kept telling it, and it's like, well, it'd be a shame if everybody found out about your affair. Yeah. And so I don't know what ended up happening, and I don't know if he actually had the affair. I'm assuming not, because like, why would he do why would this story come out?
This is my biggest question. Did he have the affair or did he not have the affair?
No,
Like, and why was he talking to Claude about it?
no,
Claude, let me get some advice on how to sneak around my wife.
that's the other thing. I'm like, well, was he having conversations about like, how do I buy this thing, or how do I pay for dinner without my wife finding out? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But it's things like that that like you just wake up and it's there and you were not thinking about, oh, a model won't be able to shut it down. Like we won't be able to make it stop. And so it's kind of the same with AGI. It's just like there's so many problems day to day and so many things to solve for day to day and so many things that have progressed day to day that again, I just think we're going to wake up one day and it's going to be here. But to your friend's point about compensation, my boss and I had this conversation the other day, and it was actually based on an article I was reading about how because of the advancements in AI, we are going to need a universal basic income because so many people sadly are going to lose jobs. But the article was talking about how like universal basic income causes inflation because everybody has a certain amount of money. And will AI be able to keep up with the advancements? Who's going to buy the things that AI is producing if nobody has enough money to do it? And so my boss and I were talking about like, we're going to even have to think about rethink what universal basic income looks like as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe I don't think about it because it's scary. Maybe I'm just, I just
Yeah.
see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. There's a lot of unknown and we can't predict the future. Well, I think that also begs the question around AI governance and responsibility. You work in AI every day. You're learning about new AI tools, new AI platforms, new use cases all the time. Whose responsibility is it to govern and make sure that this is happening in a responsible way?
Well, you have a kid. I don't, but you know the saying, it takes a village. I think it's the village. I think it's not one person's responsibility because it can't be all of one person's. I went to a conference last year and unfortunately Andrew Ng was not there. I was like so excited to see him. So it was like a recorded presentation, but he talks about how you have the actual tool, but then you have the application. And those are two different things. So I can build something. How you choose to use it is maybe totally different than what I built it for. So I think that the people building the tools, you know, putting the guardrails there that need to be there. So making sure it can shut down, making sure it, you know, deletes data when it should, which is actually interesting because I think OpenAI is fighting a lawsuit that says that should keep all conversations, which I thought was interesting. Like, I think the government saying you should keep all conversations. But, you know, like we, for instance, choose based on the fact that they don't retain our data. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so that's going to be interesting. But anyway, I think the guardrail should be there. I do think that so the people that are using it for whatever they're using it for, I think that there needs to be some sort of policy around using it responsibly internally. I think that obviously lawmakers need to really consider like, hey, what's best? I think obviously the EU does a lot better with that
Yeah.
than the US. But I will say I am surprised that the administration is paying attention to it as much as they are. Like I keep seeing things that are coming out, whether I agree with them or not, I'm neither here nor there. But the fact that they're paying attention as much as they are, I'm kind of pleasantly surprised. So I think it's that. And then I think it's like in your home, like
Yeah.
what you decide to do with it. Same thing with TikTok or letting your kid get on social media. Like, do you go and check those accounts? So it can't be on one person. And if it is on one person, then I think that, like, which person is it? Do we want it to be the government? Likely not. We do not want them to make all the decisions. So, yeah, I think it's a combination.
Yeah. I think that when I think about the village analogy, it resonates a lot. I want the government to be regulating, and I also want companies to be thinking about this. And I think it behooves us that they do. Obviously, Anthropic, this is their modus operandi.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, have you heard of other companies that have really taken that ethical AI approach? And also, does that factor into how you make AI purchasing decisions?
I can't think of any other ones that off the top of my head. So maybe they do, but that is not really their differentiator. I mean, which maybe there's room for that. Maybe more companies should come out and say like ethics are at the forefront of what we're building. It does not, I don't have the decision making power in that sense. But I think because most people are on the same playing field, like I said, as long as they aren't training on our data, the data retention policy that we agreed to is there. I think that's kind of how we decide, but we do have an internal policy that you have to follow. But also, when I told you I want to build like 8 different things, there was a lady in WDAI who was building an anti-bias extension, and I thought that that was the most amazing thing. Tried reaching out, like we never were able to connect. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna try on Lovable or something like that. And I did mock something up. I haven't like gone through with it, but I do think that there's room to kind of, I do like the idea of this outside checks and balances. It's the checks and balances.
Yeah.
So, I think even if the tool isn't building that in, then maybe additional tools to hold them accountable are what we need.
Agreed. Agreed. Using the village, having checks and balances, I think those go hand in hand. And I think that the future of AI is right here, ready in front of us to participate in. And it's exciting. It can also be a little scary, but it's very exciting. So thank you so much, Sheena. This has been so fun. Every time I talk to you, I have a great time. Where can people find you, Sheena?
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Please do. Please reach out. It's just Sheena Miles on LinkedIn, and you will see my picture. It is an AI generated picture, but hey, why not? And then you can look up my website is sheenamiles.ai, so you can find me there as well. And you'll learn more about what I do, what I can offer, how I can help individuals, how I can help companies, and maybe I'll post about my favorite books too.
Wonderful. Cool. And I'll also just plug that you have great LinkedIn posts, great content about all the fun things that you're testing out with AI. I always enjoy them, and I think others will too. And for those listening, this is the Women Defining AI podcast. You can find us at womendefiningai.com, and please join our Slack community.